Hey, hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining another LeadSquared webinar. A very good afternoon to all those who've joined us from India or Asia, respectively. Good morning, good evening to people joining in from other parts of the world. Thanks so much for joining a LeadSquared webinar. Those of you who are new to this, we have sessions every week on variety of topics. We do industry-specific sessions, as is the one today. So do tune in once in a while to listen to what we have to say, and of course if you like it, then try our product. Okay, so today we'll be talking about banking. Now, just to give you some context, we are having BFSI week at LeadSquared, which means we will be having a series of webinars for the BFSI sector, specifically talking about how to digitize your entire sales process to increase your conversion rates and drive up efficiency. Okay, so to start with, we are doing banking. Today, we'll be talking about lending businesses tomorrow, transformation in lending, and of course, doing insurance sales on Thursday. So I hope you can stick around for all three sessions. Some of the things that we'll cover today are, of course, managing your remote workforce, driving productivity, tracking communication, helping your team motivated, which is very important at this time, automating repetitive tasks, empowering your team to upsell, cross sell, and of course, ensuring a paperless and contactless online process. Now, to take us through this session is Nilesh Patel, who is the co founder and chief executive officer of LeadSquared. He's actually taking a webinar after quite a while. So, hi, Nilesh, how are you doing? It's been a while since you took a webinar for us. Please tell us how's it going.
Hey Shibani, thank you. You have been doing an awesome job of conducting the webinars. I think we've been doing it for like what, 7 years plus, 6 to 7 years in the row, I believe.
Yeah, it's been a while actually. I've been around for less though, but yes, like at least 6 years for sure. Yeah.
Okay, and I will not be surprised if half of the India knows you by the webinar emails which goes out, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's so many people it goes to, and then they talk to me, and it's really nice. It's really nice to, talk to people who you don't know from different parts of the country. So yeah.
Awesome. No, you've been doing a fantastic job in taking the whole knowledge session forward on the webinar, which has been one of our most important method and medium for communicating with our with our with the folks who listen to the stories we have to tell. And the other thing which you have done beautiful is inviting speakers across the spectrum to talk on our shows so that more knowledge is shared in terms of what we're doing and which is of value to the constituents we serve. So thank you so much. Been a while for me to come on a session here, but I'm glad to be part of it again, and talk about the sales transformation ideas for banking. And all of this has come to us through through the actual knowledge of working with some of the banking customers and larger broader financial institutions we have been working with. So I wanted to sort of bundle these ideas together and share. Obviously this is not a comprehensive end-to-end kind of a transformation, but specifically I've picked few ideas on a couple of areas which are more important for from my conversations with folks in the banking and broader financial services industry. So I'd like to kind of cover those today and see what's what people are doing. In my interactions, also what I found is that different financial institutions, based on their size, scale, and evolution, are on at different levels of from a transformation standpoint, are at different levels in their own businesses, and driving that for the business. Specifically the digital transformation side. Right, everybody wants to do it, and obviously people are in different stages. So some of you who may hear me, talking about the transformation, may find that you may have implemented few ideas, which is obviously great, and others may find some of these things interesting. And if you have done something even better than what I've seen and what my team has seen here, would love to learn from you, and would love to hear from you as well in terms of what you have done good, so that broader community can benefit from it. So with that, I'll dive into the session. So so basically, quickly first, I'm going to talk about LeadSquared, what we are and what we have been doing. So it's been about 7 years journey for us, six to 7 years journey for us on the product. LeadSquared is a sales execution software and then a marketing automation platform. And our focus has been, working with businesses that sell at speed, and we have been able to bring lots of efficiencies in their processes. What we found, especially in emerging world and broader, emerging countries, is that there's a lot of offline and online mix to any sales process. So you have leads coming in from online, converting offline. You have leads coming on the phone, converting offline. You have leads coming from offline, converting on phone. So there are a variety of use cases and the method which are employed to convert the customer, because in especially in emerging countries the customers come in all hues and colors, right? So there'll be the most digitally advanced folks, and then there'll be folks who are not as advanced from a digital adoption standpoint. So what we found is that on a platform offering perspective, we had to cater to the entire spectrum of sales process. So LeadSquared, as a part of evolution, has been built as a suite of solutions for field sales, call center sales, marketing automation, driving the self-service piece of it, which allows to reduce cost for the banking and broader industries to reduce the cost of customer acquisition by giving the customer the ability to buy stuff or pre-qualify themselves online. And the whole COVID situation, plus the whole idea of remote workforce management, we didn't think of something like COVID. Obviously it's an unfortunate situation, but already had built in a solution for managing remote workforce, which is currently coming in very handy for some of our customers who are using LeadSquared. I've picked a slide which my colleague Meenu built, uh, some time ago, and it's kind of covers the spectrum of how it's a really miniature version of of how the sales process works in classic lending / banking institutions. So you have leads coming in from all over the place. Some of them go to the call center for qualification, then are routed to relationship managers who are associated with the branches on the field. Now, some of this doesn't unfortunately happen in as seamless manner as I've shown in the slide. A lot of that is a broken process. And then those leads are then transferred either in Excel, whatever, to the branches, and the branch managers give those leads, hand it over to the call center, to the the RMs or the field agents. That's the top-down flow from how online leads are coming in. Then you have other variety of leads which come in by virtue of generating upsell, cross-sell opportunities. Now, that is a very different flow in banking. Some of that is directed from the product manager side, or others are being driven by at the branch level, and it's a very offline and unorganized method of creating and generating cross-sell and upsell signal. I've seen some banks do it, but a lot of them have not been able to do it in what I have observed. And so there is this whole cross-sell upsell is one area where I've seen some lack of efficiency, and in the whole new customer acquisition is where you've seen and I've seen some of the efficiency lack of efficiency in the banking. And some of that is also to do with the variety of products which are offered by the bank, because each product is in some ways managed by a separate team, and it is very hard to put an umbrella situation on top of this to make it easy. So it's definitely a difficult environment, more complex environment. I won't call it difficult, where in which banks operate, given the security and privacy and so many other regulatory framework they deal with on a daily basis. So today, what I'd like to cover is basically three areas. One is the new to bank scenario, where leads are coming from digital. Digital lead generation is happening. There is a call center situation involved in most of the banks I've seen, and after due qualification on the call center, they are in an offline method are transferred to the field teams. Now, In some banks, maybe it is possible that some level of automation may have happened, but largely it has not happened in what I have observed and seen, even in some of the large banks. In existing to customer, existing to bank, scenario, there is there is a situation where you can make you're sort of forced to make more money of existing customers, right? If you're not able to get new customers in the door, and there is enough stats out there that if you can sell more to your existing customers, they are more profitable to build and the business, and because there's no or rather zero cost of customer acquisition attached to it, right? And finally, collections. I believe collections will be a very important for any bank or any lending institutions at the moment, or for any even insurance guys, the renewal, right? I mean, their collections would be an important piece, because as we see the COVID situation, right, a lot of people won't be able to pay up, but if you have to keep up the profits, you have to make sure that the collections happen and they happen on time. So that's again another piece I'd like to quickly cover. Some of that could be a repetition of the first 2 points, but let's just dive into it. Meanwhile, there are enough questions while I complete one part of the presentation. If Shibani feels there are enough questions out there, maybe where we can pause and take those before we move forward. But we'll see how that goes, and else I'll take all the questions towards the end of the session. So digital to call center. So this is how for retail assets and the retail liabilities and other commercial products, the leads which are generated through online, either people send these bulk emails to the list of customers, people click and fill those forms and become leads, or there you generate those leads through some sort of an SMS sort of campaign, or or you do an offline event and people go online and sign up. You do paid search campaigns or social campaigns, and so there are various methods deployed by the by the business to generate leads. And invariably, based on the product, each bank obviously operate differently, so there could be separate product teams for each product, and so there is a quick segregation, or there could be a central team as well, which then further divides those leads. But I've seen that for larger banks specifically, the leads which come for a certain type of products, are being handled by their respective, product or the call center teams, right? And those call center teams then will qualify, some of those leads before handing it over to the, routing it to the field or the branch team. Now, this routing process invariably in most cases is offline, either through email or it is through some kind of Excel which is being sent. So let's say today all the leads are getting captured. Someone in the ops team would bundle those leads together, divide them by zip code, and send it to the respective branches, right? Now there are other in commercial, in some banks, the retail and small business teams are together. So you, for example, you may be generating leads through things like getting all the companies who are signing up or getting registered in register of companies. You get all the details, and then you assign those to respective branches based on zip code, and then people will those will be assigned to respective reps, who will then go ahead and call the customer and close. So there are various breaks in the whole process, which basically introduces lag in the turnaround time. And due to lag, you may not be the first one to reach the customer, and hence you may somebody else will win ahead that business, right? Your competitors may be more agile to win ahead that business. So all of these tend to be the challenges. There is the turnaround times are small, large. There are situations, specifically what I've observed and there's one potential deal we were chasing, where there was a credit card process where leads were generating online, and then there is a offline KYC process where you have to verify the Aadhaar. And what the customer wanted was to basically, while you are generating lead, there's some qualification on the call center, let's say, and then it goes to the field team. But when the field meets the customer, right, at that moment, the Aadhaar verification has to happen, right? And it has to be integrated seamlessly in the sales application, because the salesperson, unfortunately, cannot use multiple applications while they're working. So that was so completing the entire process, and the offline piece of the process has to be integrated, right? And the FOS productivity. There's always this concern on the sales heads and the business heads that their FOS teams are not doing as much as they would like them to do. Maybe they should be doing 5 meetings in a day, but ends up doing only 2 meetings in a day or 3 meetings in a day, and then they're not as productive, and they're not able to track their performance. So some of those challenges also exist in this case. And some of the challenges are also there because uh, the classic CRM systems, right, which are being adopted by the banks, have been mostly customer service centric, and so they were not created to drive sales at velocity. There is a possibility that some of that can be done, but the fact that it is so hard to do it in them because they were not created for driving sales, it makes it very, very hard for people to use and make use of it. And I've seen enough examples of that in India particularly, where the customer service centric products are unable to cut. And specifically, even if you're able to buy one, it's very hard for salespeople and the brand staff and basically the business guys to run the system, right? They've not been made and thought about in that fashion. So that's creates another problem. So what are the solution ideas, right? How we can solve some of these problems, right? So I think one we are doing for one of the large banks in India, where we have basically are helping them do the digital qualification of leads and giving them the system to modify the qualification criteria on the fly, so that the call center has a lower load of qualifying, and some of that directly goes to the field teams, right? The other element is which we found in specifically in digital KYC process with one of our customer who is in the personal loan consumer lending side, right? What they wanted was that while there'll be customers who would do some of their stuff on their own, but then there could be a call center intervention. But I'd like to reduce the call center intervention to minimum, right? So how can I automate? So for example, if you have to pull a CIBIL report, right? Before I pull a CIBIL, can I get a consent from this customer through some sort of, let's say, a phone call going to them, then them accepting yes or no, one or two button, whatever they're pressing, or if I ask them to send an SMS or some other method which basically reduces the bandwidth consumed from the call center staff. So that way the efficiency goes up and the cost of customer acquisition comes down. Some of that. And then if you are able to do some of the qualification upfront, then you basically have a lower number of teams, less number of people on the call center side, and some of the leads which require attention from the field teams can be directly handed over to them, right, with less time consumed in between, right? Further, what I've also observed, I was talking to one of our colleagues in the banking team here, and he comes from the bank, and what he was saying very interestingly, which you mentioned, is that a lot of FOS staff, which is attached to a branch, some of them do not like everybody does not have a desktop assigned to them, meaning they go in there, there's a shared desktops 2 3 4 lying there, right? And if they get access to one, they can use it. If they don't have it, if somebody else is using it, they basically are not able to use it, right? So which also means is that the FOS teams should basically get their leads on their mobile phone, because mobile is a personal device, and they should be able to they'll have full control on that, literally, right? So how can we empower those that stuff on mobile, which means basically giving them access to some sort of field sales application where they can access their leads, look at the opportunities and stuff like that. And then in the whole process, let's say if a customer is looking for a loan, and you assign that record to a field sales staff, right? Now, how can you improve the efficiency of the sales process by maybe we can automate some communication to the customer saying, hello, Mr. Customer, I've assigned this this relationship manager to you. He or she will be calling you in few hours, for example, to talk to you about the product request you had and take it forward from there. So very simple communication can be established, and the same can be communicated to the field sales rep while they are on the go, so that they can pause and take a phone call or make a phone call to take the sales process forward and reduce it turnaround time substantially. some of that. And so let me talk to let me show you a few screens here which kind of talks about the things I mentioned in the solution idea side. So digital lead qualification is basically some kind of a customer self-service portal which basically allows you to capture information, all the information which you need at the from the customer before you decide whether before you generate an offer for them or show them what the product they are interested in looks like. So for example, in this case, you can capture all the information and say, well, if you apply based on what I gather from you, it looks like this is going to be the interest rate for you, sort of high level, some eligibility criteria, and this is what your EMI is going to look like, etc. Right? So you can, or this is what the kind of credit limit I can offer you on this credit card, for example, right? So that if the customer accepts it, only then you make a phone call to them. Otherwise, you don't have to really bother and talk to the customer, right? So you can, and if they are qualified, you can directly assign that to the nearest field staff and let them take it forward from there. This is what I was talking about, the straight through processing scenario. So in the event where you are basically asking customer to sign up, let's say a consumer lending application, like a personal loan application, right? And if they're able to fulfill the entire journey on their own, then there is no reason for us to make a phone call to them, right? So for example, one of our clients, Acco General, right? It's not a banking example, but a general insurance example, where if you're buying an insurance online and if you are able to fulfill the entire process on your own, then nobody will call you, basically, right? But if, let's say, you're dropping off in between a third step or the second step or whatever the step may be, then you have to make sure that how do I convert these customers, because you've already generated a lead now, right? And so how do we, and only those leads which are not converting on their own are actually getting routed to the call center. This improves the efficiency substantially and also improves the customer experience, because there are there are a lot of customers who do not want to be called, right? And I know personally a lot of them in my own office, right? Who won't who'd like to do things on their own. They don't want to be called, right? So that customer does not want to be bothered, and he or she would like to complete the whole process on their own. Then the whole idea of which I talked about on assigning the inquiry, the lead, which is generated to the salesperson on the field. So you have mobile application, you ping them the lead, they look at it, and then they basically make it part of their plan to make a phone call or whatever the case may be as desired. The other piece I talked about, the customer communication. So you basically, once the lead is created, you basically communicate the customer. You tell them who's going to call them. You basically inform them, and once you say who's going to call you, it just gives you a more personalized experience, and some of that can be easily accomplished in let's say LeadSquared. Then the other thing is, which is sort of a COVID use case as well in some sense, is that there's been a sort of a demand on by some of our customers asking us to give them a solution for for recording phone calls. So you have a tough problem recording phone calls on devices because Android and Apple do not allow that, or are progressively not allowing that. In fact, both of them have in Apple it was a case in the beginning, and since beginning itself, but in Android they've also stopped any application which is recording the voice of the customer during the phone call. So what do you do now? So you have the what we have built as a cloud solution, which basically gives you a virtual number, and then using that you can make a phone call to the customer. The customer can call that virtual number. It'll be diverted to the respective salesperson who is assigned to that customer, and then the whole conversation can be recorded. You will be able to look at the whole customer experience there. You'll be able to look listen to the recording, etc. from the in LeadSquared. So you'll be able to find what's going on with all your leads which are being assigned to the salesperson. Also, there is this whole thing about whether or not if the field team or the RM has actually met the customer or not, right? And so in LeadSquared you can do things like simple things like you can check in the morning to just kind of mark an attendance kind of a thing. Look at which location they have started their day. All the meetings they have, respective meetings, whether they're going and doing meetings on those locations or not. So enforcing that regimenting that, meaning if a meeting is, let's say, at a certain address in Andheri, then the salesperson can only complete that task in Andheri, right? They cannot do it, let's say beyond 30-40 meter radius from that location. So enforcing that will ensure that any meeting assigned to the rep is actually, is basically happening at the point of location which the customer is intended that meeting should happen. So some of that brings in additional trackability in the whole entire sales process. And finally, I talked about the offline, the collecting the customer documents and completing the process step, which may be necessary to improve the entire efficiency of the not only the customer's ability for the customer to receive the desired product faster, but also to reduce the cost on the customer acquisition side. Then I'd like to quickly move to the uh, to the proactive sales, more like an existing to bank customer, right? And this is again a scenario where you a relationship manager who has, let's say, 200, let's say if you're a take this case of privileged banking, right? So maybe you are a relationship manager who's assigned 200, 300, whatever the max number of customers you can handle assigned to you. Now you want to really closely monitor those 200 customers of yours. And what I found is the method of managing and finding what is going on in the life of that customer, specifically related to the banking information you already have, may not be accessible or available to all the RMs in the actionable insight format they need. So for example, let's say if somebody has accumulated more cash in their savings account than usually they have, maybe it's time for us to talk to them about a fixed deposit product, or some kind of a fixed deposit product which is attached to, let's say, some kind of a policy, like an insurance policy, let's say, right? So without information about any analytics on that, it will be hard for the RM to just pick up a phone and make a phone call. And so some of that can be taken out from whatever RM is trying to do today, more unorganized method, right? And make it more organized, A. And B, I've taken another example which I've personally also seen, is that, let's say I'm an RM, selling, I'm a privileged banker, you're my customer. I spoke to you and you said I'm looking to purchase a car, and I may suggest that, can you take a car loan, right? I've personally observed that process is broken in the banks, right? So I collect the information, then I will pass that information over to another team, and then I have no knowledge of what that team is doing with you, because but you are my privileged banking customer, and so you will call me, and so it's very hard to track this whole cross-sell capture. So it doesn't mean that a cross-sell doesn't happen. It does happen, right? Everybody knows that it happens. But how do we make it more streamlined? How do we make it more digitized, so that this process can also be observed, tracked meaningfully in the system? So some of that I'll talk here in this example, and how we can get the customer information. So first of all, you have to get the customer information to the RM, right? And obviously there are things of what you want the RM to know on mobile and what you don't want to know. So there will be obviously checks on that side, and there'll be some information hiding going on maybe there, or you want to specifically give them target information on saying this is the actionable insight and this is the action you have to take, right? So that you basically give the RM what they have to do, and versus make them think on what, let them analyze themselves. Instead that you just basically tell them, okay, if this has happened, then you don't say it has happened. You just tell them, Mr. RM, I would like you to go and sell or cross sell this product to the customer. RM looks at it, makes a phone call, and drops the disposition there based on whether that suggestion was valid or not, right? And one more thing which I've sort of found in one of the scenarios is that um, uh, the the cost of serving customer on field is obviously high, right? So you cannot do that for all kinds of customers. So what do? So you may potentially look at sort of a VRM model, right? Which means a virtual relationship manager model, where you basically serve the customer, but the customer may not necessarily need you all the time. And I've seen this happen in 2 or 3 scenarios. One is unrelated to even banking. Some of you may be even taking coaches for dieting or for some sort of fitness, right? So these fitness coaches and all of these coaches are basically talking to you on the phone, right? And you take the instructions or you take their help and you basically follow what they are saying to you. Similarly, in another case, I've observed that there is a insurance company, one of our customers, they're basically using this VRM model for servicing the agents who are basically selling their policies. So you onboard the agent, and then this VRM is assigned to, let's say, 50, 100 agents, and then this VRM is kind of point of contact for the for this agent to answer any queries, help them walk through any new product which comes in, etc. So this whole VRM concept is again sort of call center driven process, but it gives you the the reach which you need at a lower cost, and still create happy constituent, either a customer or an agent in this case, for example. So that's another solution idea for proactive E2B process. So this is an interesting slide my colleague Meenu put together, and I know the entire process is broken in banks right now. Largely, I've seen few banks have done it really well, but largely it is broken. So any banking situation, and if you paint a picture, right? So you have this big core banking products, and then you have this large data warehouse connected through all kinds of enterprise service buses, etc. And through the data warehouse, you are taking cut of the data of what you need, and product managers would basically either run those queries on the BI systems or some method, let's say, deployed there to find the cross set, the set of customers you want to go and sell a product or service, right? And then based on that cut, you basically create an offer for them, which could be personalized for every customer, right? So you may have an offer for a personal loan for a customer, and the rate of interest would vary based on the rules you have on them, right? And after you apply those rules, you basically curate the offer and send that offer. So the offer can be communicated either through your website when somebody visits. It can be a message going to the customer, or it could be a message going to the relationship manager, or it could be a message which goes to the call center, and then the call center would proactively reach out to the customer and say, "Hey, Mr. Customer, I believe you at this at this point maybe this product could be of interest to you." So offer engine is what the cross-sell and upsell insight generation is, the one core part of what the banks will have to do, and some of them are already doing it, to basically create and curate an offer. And then comes the delivery of the offer. So once the insights are generated, how do you deliver that insight? So I've taken a case of the classic FOS here. The first thing which I mentioned is that you want the FOS first to know about their customer on the field, right? So that's giving the access to the customer information, whatever that is, to them, on the field, which is on the mobile. And the second is, when they look at that, right, you basically do not, ideally do not let the customer agent, the RM, think on his own what product would be useful to the customer. I'm sure there are smart RMs who know how to do it, but if you already have an offer generation method, you basically present that offer to the RM and ask him to close that offer with the customer, present that offer to the customer in person, for that matter, right? And this depends on the relationship the RM enjoys with the customer, and he or she can present that offer to the customer. That is one method, right? So getting the offer available to the agent and making them present the offer to the customer is one part of the area which can be improved, which can transform the sales for the E2B kind of customers. And then once you are meeting a customer, if you are generating a new opportunity from that customer, right, you basically are able to capture it in some method, and then the new life cycle of the opportunity starts. So this is a new opportunity, maybe for a different department. It's an auto loan opportunity or some other opportunity. It goes to that team who's going to serve that opportunity for the customer. But I'm giving you the ability to capture it here and make sure that the entire opportunity tracking is available to anyone, so that you can easily know where it has originated from. I talked about this earlier, so I'll just flip these slides on tracking the FOS and customer communication, and I'll quickly sort of show the slide of how you can potentially track the performance of the various products getting sold by branch. And this is too simple a slide, obviously, to present, but you get the idea of what how you can go ahead and track your cross-sell efficiency. Finally, I'll point out two elements, and now we'll kind of move to the closure of the presentation. Is on the collection side. So my colleague Shay put a beautiful workflow, which it's too big for me to show it here, but basically you collect. Again, it's a similar process. There is a loan management system which tells you who have defaulted on the loans, and with a certain DPD, you get those leads in, push into the call center. The call center is, so I think that piece is already I would say relatively set with. So there's an Excel which comes out of LMS. You import that in the call center, and then the calling starts. There are different batches of how that happens. Obviously, some of this process can be automated, so the manual element of exporting Excel, importing Excel can be avoided, but still it works. People are able to do that. But where it fails today is after you capture the intent to pay, and the customer is not paying, or the customer is not picking the phone call, or basically there's a broken communication. Then at that time you want to engage the field collection team to go ahead and meet the customer and try to see what are the next steps there to complete that process. And so again, that piece is again fully broken in the collection side, and it also involves the automated customer communication on the collection side. The entire field process on the collection, that is completely broken by and large. I'm not saying for all the banks, as the places where we've been able to get the opportunity to see it. So that piece is again which can be, and I've showed you some ideas on how we can do it for the cross sell, upsell, and new to bank customer. The similar model will apply here, where you're basically telling the collection agent to go and target a certain customer with a certain, you give them all the information related to that loan, which they have defaulted on, and what is due on them to collect, and the action they have to take. So with that, I'll pause here and open the audience for questions, and see what you'll have to say about this whole thing I talked about.
Sure, Nilesh. So, like Nilesh said, if you guys have any comments or questions about what he talked about, please do share it now. I'll kickstart with Sashi's question. Mr. Sashi Kumar, he says, given your experience, what's been the key pain points of banks?
See, I think the first, any business you can go and talk to, new customer acquisition is always an area of interest to the banks. Depending on which person you're talking in general, it could be a different answer, because banks are a complex organization. So you go to a retail liability team, you have a different problem. You go to retail assets, they have a different problem. You go to corporate banking, they have a different problem. So there is, fundamentally, each will express the problem in a different method. But for a bank, I think building a high quality retail liability franchise is important. It brings their cost of funds down, right? So that's certainly important for them. Making sure that they lend to right prospects is super critical for them, just to create a high quality bank, right? So these two are super critical. But just to create volumes in each of these, you need so if you need a good customer, you have to really work hard for it, right? That is not going to come on plate to you, right? So I think that is so getting a customer and is certainly important. Now, what has happened in, at least in the Indian financial institution, Indian financial services industry, is that some players have proven the entire value of selling to existing customers. So while new customer acquisition is important, and it's a lot of cost to get it, but the fact that some of the leading non-banking financial companies have actually sold 2 or 3 different products to the same customer they acquired first time has created some level of interest in the entire financial institutions, saying, well, we can sell, let's focus on selling to existing customers, because the cost is not that high, because we already have those customers, right? So I think that is a huge area of importance for some of these for the financial institutions now. Unfortunately, due to COVID, collections are going to take a huge hit, and I think if you ask anyone now, I think collections will be most important for them, because everybody wants to make sure that they are their non-performing assets don't go up. So I think and obviously a long answer to a short question, but that's what I feel is the situation. And see, cost of customer acquisition has to come down. I think I'm just trying to address the next question. If I see it correctly, the CAC has to come down, or you have to reduce it. Is again an important. But I've heard different people talk about this differently. So, for example, in some product categories, the banks want to cut the DSAs. In other product categories, they want to variabilize the cost, right? So they're happy to have DSAs because the DSA will take more, the cost will go up a little bit more than having their own team. So I think people who have higher efficiency getting out of their workforce may want to bring some of that in-house, and it's vice versa in some other cases.
Okay, the next question's on, in fact, as we mentioned, that due to the coronavirus, things have come to a standstill. So, in this regard, how do we reduce the dependency of feet on street?
So you don't reduce the. So first of all, there is no the custom. Unfortunately, you cannot go and meet the customer. So that is the fact, right? So you have to communicate to the customer on the phone. I think the that is the only alternative left to you, and so you will have to encourage the customers to do things on their self-service. So if they have to book a fixed deposit, instead of you going and doing the job for them, which you were doing earlier, or asking the customer to visit the branch in some cases, right? Instead of that, you'll have to be on the phone with the customer or do some sort of video call with the customer and navigate them through the process of doing it on their own. So I think making the customer do things on their own would be one important, if you want to do business right now, right, in this situation. While these things change, obviously, there'll be a different way to operate, or people will go back the earlier method. But I think the fact that people have to be ready to be in this situation in future will ensure that the FOS is also geared, or at least advising the customers to navigate and do things on their own, and they also themselves become efficient in using the tool. So today the FOS or the relationship manager may not be conversant with any kind of video communication tool, for example, right? But to make sure that they retain the customer, they might have to pick those skills additionally to be able to do that. So once they do it, I mean, they now you may the next question could be how are they different from a VRM, virtual relationship manager, which I just kind of coined the term, and the FOS. And I think it is not clear right now what are the boundaries going to be. But I think for high value products, there will still be field teams, because people want to meet before they hand over that check to you, or whatever that product they're buying from you. They want to see you, they want to talk to you, they want to they want that service coming at the desk. And so I don't see that going away that easily. But I definitely see that a large portion of the customer can be managed through the VRM channel potentially.
All right, I am moving to Sandesh's question. So he says, for customers coming to my site and exploring the features and going out, is there a mechanism to reach them later, even if they have not left their phone number?
I do not know of any method right now, except that you can retarget them through Google, Facebook, and some of the LinkedIn kind of advertisements. So that way you can bring back the same visitor on your website or a different landing page, but you will not be able to call them, while they are away. So I think that is the only method which comes to my mind right now.
And moving, he has another question actually. He says, for collections, apart from FOS and call center, emails, SMS, is there any other solution available?
I think the you this is broadly what you would be able to achieve by so you have to communicate with the customer to collect the money. I mean, I have not seen any other method, honestly. We enable this right now, so this is what we have available right now. Apart from that, I'm not sure if I have any other alternative method to do it at the moment. Yeah.
Okay, and then he has another question. He says, does your FOS application also support integrating some kind of PG or card application for collection and KYC for account opening?
Yeah, some of these things can be integrated in our application. We've already done it for a couple of customers, and so this is something we support already. So
Okay,
yes.
then okay, and now a couple of people have questions on security. So does LeadSquared comply with relevant RBI guidelines as security features are essential in the banking and financial services sector?
So we already have one of a large bank as a customer, and several other insurance companies and large lending institutions as our customer, who are also in RBI's. There's a guideline laid out by them, and we have qualified all the security criterias which are listed out there, and we've been audited for that as well. So the answer is yes.
Okay, then I have another question from Mihir who's saying he joined in late. So he wants to know how can we digitize some processes that have typically been offline, like document collection. Also, he says, do you think AI, NLP, blockchain can help?
See, document collection is a certainly can be digitized. In fact, we are doing it for several lending companies already, and so that is now digitization has different layers, obviously, right? Going up to reading the document and OCR and all of that, right? So that is not so there is a different degree of that. But for example, simple things like, let's say if you want to collect a PAN card, right? And I'm just taking a scenario. So you collect a PAN card or an Aadhaar card, you take a picture, it goes in, right? And that is collected already. If you want to collect some sort of let's say certificate which has been issued by government, let's say a shops and establishment certificate or some kind of company identification number, right? And so we have Amazon Pay as our client. They're using and kind of taking a different use case here, but they have this merchant onboarding scenario where they go to a merchant, and off the merchant they have to collect 2 3 4 pieces of information which they need from on their side for audit and other purposes, just and maybe just necessary to get them on board. It could be a bank information, it could be the simple as phone number, it could be the location of the merchant, it could be the certificate I talked about. So all of this has to be captured and they are captured either as an image, and the image can be processed, information can be taken out of the image and put into the field, and basically takes the process forward. So the other end of the spectrum could be there is a 500 pages of let's say a lease agreement, right? I think it is better to take that a print copy of that. So I think depending on and what type of document we are collecting, I think to large degree it can be automated, is what we have observed in the situations which has come across to us.
All right, Krishna Kant, here's your question. He says, what should be the correct penetration for business generation, uh, ensuring customer centricity?
I think if you ask anyone, they'd like 100% of it. Yeah, I won't know the right answer for that. I think I would say, quoting some management guys, I mean, if you have 40-50% of the market share, I think then you're basically doing well.
Okay. Praveen, here's your question. He says, from digital insurance perspective, does LeadSquared assist in online lead scoring model for prioritizing prospects? If yes, what metrics does LeadSquared track to define priority?
So, um, so there is a way we do it, but it is also a function of how the business is looking at the priority, because just the online metric may not be sufficient in some cases. But we have a scoring model, and we work with prospects to refine that for their respective businesses. And so I won't be able to go into detail right now. I think it'll be best for you to consult and talk to some of our experts who have done it for our existing customers. I think those will be the best people to guide you here. So I would there's a gentleman called Murli. You can Murli at leadsquared.com. If you want to write to him, he can probably find the right resource to help you.
Okay, and Praveen also, and just for the audience in general, we have an insurance specific session coming up on Thursday. So do join us for that. That'll give you a lot of insights. And those who are looking at lending, join the session tomorrow on lending. I'm moving to Dharam's question. Now he says, is it legal to ask customers for Aadhaar card or PAN card on phone?
See, I think there's a RBI has come up with a video KYC guideline. So as long as what we are asking them follows into the KYC guideline, I don't think there is an issue. I don't know about specifically with Aadhaar card, but I think PAN card is not a problem from whatever I've seen, and I've also given my PAN card to people. I don't think that's an issue. On Aadhaar card specifically, what I've found is that the information around Aadhaar has to be stored in a certain format. And so the solution which we have built with one of our customers is that we don't store anything. It is a pass-through, for us. And we're calling the Aadhaar APIs, which are, certified, which are basically by offered by the people who are certified by the government. And whatever information that comes in, we only store what bank is asking us to do. In fact, in case of other, we're storing nothing technically. So you can ask it, but you don't store it basically, you know, or it gets stored only in the banking system wherever it is allowed to.
Okay, right. So I'm coming to the questions on mobile app. Now, the question is mobile app supported on all devices?
Yes, mobile app is supported on all devices, except maybe there could be certain Android versions which we don't support, lower versions of Android. And so it is supported largely on all, I don't know the version of maybe 6 or 7 or above of Android. It's all supported there, and it works in offline mode. So you can access your leads, opportunities, customer information in the offline method as well.
All right, and now coming to Wasim's question. So he's specifically speaking for the UAE market. He says, how efficient are you in managing mortgage leads in the UAE sector?
I think, yeah, so I see the question. I think he is asking how efficient are we in generating mortgage leads in UAE. So Wasim, I think we are not lead generating agency. Our focus is primarily to drive the efficiency in the sales process. So for lead generation, it'll be better for you to deal with people who are sort of experts in generating leads in that, which are agencies, digital agencies, and the likes. LeadSquared is not the right company for generating leads. Once you have a lead, how you want to follow through that process and make it more efficient is where we come into picture.
All right. I do not see any more questions coming in. So yes, some of you are asking for the deck, which will be shared, and so will the recording. Just a quick reminder again, we are continuing with BFSI week for the rest of this week. So those who are looking to join the session on lending specifically next tomorrow, that is, I'll share the recording. I'll share the landing page with you, the registration page, or just reach out to me and I'll share that. Those who are looking to join insurance, please join us on Thursday. Okay, so while I was talking about this, Veronica, apologize if I've mispronounced your name. So she says by connecting leads generated to revenue, companies can start optimizing their marketing programs and focus on the ones that create the best leads. What kind of reports does the organization enable?
So in LeadSquared, you can run the full life cycle of the lead from a lead source they are coming from till the conversion, and you can track which sources are actually driving the conversion. So I think by looking at the report in the reverse fashion, you will be able to see which sources are driving the most conversions for you. In case of and in case of depending on the how you capture the conversion, some of this information has to be back filled from the systems where the conversion are recorded. So I think that's the piece where integration and the things has to be done. But assuming that is sorted, you're able to get the full view of which sources are driving the most conversions for you.
Okay, and Veronica, we will get back to you on specific names of reports that can help you achieve this. Okay, please design a webinar on digital education. Okay, all right. So I don't see any new questions coming in. Just a quick note here. So we're doing these industry specific sessions, of course, this week. And if you all know any industry experts, any others in the field who can share some insights with us, we'd be happy to have them join these sessions and share their knowledge here. I think we can close the session now. Okay, so we have more questions coming in, Nilesh. So Krishnakant says, with your experience, can you please help us knowing the common miss people or company does on online sales business?
I think the first is response time. People don't attack the leads on time. I think that's the first mistake people make. After doing so, they don't do it enough time. So maybe you, let's say you make a phone call after somebody fills a form. It's possible that they are not able to pick your phone while they may be busy doing something. So making enough attempts, either it is 4 or 6, depending on the business, in a certain finite duration of time is important to. So you have to kind of be at chase the lead um, enough times to be able to say whether they'll convert or not. So that's one mistake people make, largely when they are generating leads and not converting. And I'm assuming that you're generating leads through proper channel and all of that, right? So I'm not going into the digital lead generation optimization. I'm saying having a decent lead in front of you, can you convert them or not, is a function of how well oiled your sales process is set up, which is where people make a lot of mistakes, and that's why they lose the customer, or they are not able to win enough of them.
Okay, and Praveen's question is, do we have any integration with like email and push notification, any MarTech integration done by LeadSquared?
Yeah, so we have done several. LeadSquared also supports multiple marketing features. I think it'll be best if you talk to one of our one of our sales consultants. I think they'll be the best person to further understand your needs and see whether we are fit or not.
All right. Okay, I don't see any more questions, and it's almost close to 4 o'clock. Okay, the last question. Let's keep this as the last question and end this. So Sandesh's question, Nilesh, for you: how has COVID-19 impacted you?
I think we are not special. We've also seen in fact on new customer sales, we've seen some of our existing customers in stress, which obviously will impact our business as well. So yeah, I mean, I think there is a business impact of it, and I know it is in real value. There'll be lower sales, new sales may dry up for a few weeks to a few months, and existing customers will be in stress. The receivables will time may increase. So all of that, that's the impact basically. And this is just the business impact I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the personal impact and all of that. I'm sure there's enough going in the WhatsApp and internet to cover that. So I'm sure you you must have read all of that.
Yeah, of course. It's all over the place, really. Okay, so on that note, we'd like to end the session. Thank you so much, Nilesh, for taking the time to do the session. And I'm sure the audience benefited from it today. Nilesh, any final thoughts before we close the session?
No, thank you so much for organizing this, Shibani, and I'm glad so many people participated. I hope some of them would like to talk to us after the session. So thank you, everyone, and be safe. And you will please join our BFSI week. More sessions are coming in next 2 days. Awesome session lined up. Please do join or ask your colleagues to come forward and listen to them if they see value in it. Thank you all. Thank you so much, and stay safe.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you guys for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow again. Bye bye. Take care.